And I have done it. We are live.
Excellent. Barely.
Honestly, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
I really hope I remember any of this listening.
There's no way for us to remember these things.
It happens to me like a good chunk because I start early in the week. So by the time if you're not going to be able to do a week, I'm already at least like 4 albums in.
Yeah, that's the risk.
Yeah, because I have to just sprinkle them into my other listening. 2 albums a day.
Oh, yeah. Totally understandable. All right. Nick, I say we just maybe go for it.
3, 2, 1.
Totem Talks. You probably think that this is a podcast. Totem Talks. Probably think that this is a podcast.
It's a return to form.
Thank you.
And I'm very glad to hear it.
Thank you so much. We needed it.
Yeah, I knew what it was. I knew what it had to be, I think.
There was no other option.
Yeah, I knew what it had to be, and I was just really, really hoping that you did something with it. And I think you couldn't have done it better.
Wow. High praise.
Mm-hmm.
High praise. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Totem Talks. This is season 8, episode 16.
That's right.
And it's a doozy, as are they all.
Episode in like 4.5, 5 years where I was done with my notebook and I had to find something else to write my notes on.
It's crazy.
It's wild. It's been a real journey.
Did you get a new notebook, or did you just find like a leaf in the front lawn and use that instead?
This might be hilarious. I'm using like a little blue test book.
Good. Who needs a notebook when you could just use a little test book? Do you think you'll have passed the test?
Only time will tell.
You know what? Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, either way, if you're unfamiliar with Totem Talks, we are a music podcast, and we have been given the true burden of discovering the greatest musical artist of all time. And we have scoured high and low, obviously, for 8 seasons now.
Yeah,
well, 7
really
seasons,
wild.
And this is the 8th. And
right. And there was a half season in there.
And we will certainly see. We will.
I got a lot of little blue books.
Got a lot of little blue books. Love that. We will be determining today, Nick.
Yeah.
If we found the greatest musical artist of all time.
That's right. We will be.
And I guess I'm just going to ask you straight up.
Okay.
Now, no spoilers.
Right.
Did we find? No, we didn't.
No.
Okay.
But that speaks like almost nothing at all about the quality of the music on the episode, honestly.
That's a great point.
That could be from like 0 to 99.9 on a 100-point scale.
It's a great point. Although I do think realistically, if they were in the 99.9%, there's at least the argument there's at least an argument that they're the best.
Fair enough.
So really, you have in fact spoiled this.
I stand by my no. But here's
all right.
A 98's still an A+. 97's still an A. A lot of music falls into that A category that just isn't in the 100.
It's true, and I'll forgive you for spoiling it for me.
Sure, no problem.
But anyway,
rating systems.
Anyway, Nick, you're Nick. I'm Pat. We're Totem Talks. And why don't you let us know who we are covering today? Because I forgot.
Well, we're kicking things off, as you beautifully alluded to in your introduction. We're kicking off with Carly Simon. And then,
right. That's why I sang that song. Okay.
And then we're going to wrap things up with Dan Fogelberg.
Who?
Fogelberg.
That's better.
Sorry.
That's what I was looking for. All right. I guess without any further ado then.
Yeah, so much ado.
Well, let's begin then. Carly Simon. So Carly Simon Carly
Simon?
Elizabeth Simon, to be fair,
Okay.
is an American musician, singer, songwriter, and author who was active from 1963 to the present day. And I already know one of the 6 degrees you're going to use. At least I hope so. Probably.
I mean, it's gonna come up, I think.
Either way, we covered 3 albums from Ms. Carly Simon. We started with Thank You, the eponymous debut, Carly Simon from 1971. Followed that up with 1972's No Secrets. Hello on that album cover, by the way. Unexpected. Didn't see that when it was on my little phone.
I see.
And then we wrapped things up with 2009's Never Been Gone.
That's right. But I'm gonna kick things off here.
Yeah,
With
kick
Carly
things
Simon.
off.
So there's some interesting things. One, so I've never listened to this album before, to make that clear. So I didn't really know what to expect, really only knowing one song. But what I did get was a really nice singing voice, a pretty cool backing band of other artists, like including Skunk Baxter playing pedal steel guitar on this album. Very competently put together album, a pretty solid variety of different styles for the early 70s that were approached. And overall, pretty good listen. Because I feel like a lot of these singer-songwriters, you don't know whether you're gonna get someone who's, like, in the spoiler for her husband, someone who's more in, like, the James Taylor or the Jim Croce or the Joni Mitchell lane of, like, having some really clever musicianship and interesting songs, or the more, like, commercially pop, singer-songwriters of the time where there wasn't a ton of depth in the songs, and Carly definitely falls into the first category for me. Um, and then I have to mention Robert Christgau's review because, like, it's not super straightforward, and I think it's a weird review of the album. He said, "I suppose it makes sense, not only for the privileged to inflict their sensibilities on us, but for many of us to dig it." And that was just how he reviewed this album.
I really do feel like, maybe 70% of Robert Christgau's like reviews of certain things musically is just him like saying a platitude.
It's weird, right? Like, I don't necessarily disagree, like, are rich people often the drivers of culture? Yeah, sure, and often enough to people, even if they recognize, maybe that there's inequity in how culture is moving, do they still like some of the things that become fashionable? Yeah. Okay. Are you trying to say that Carly Simon is, like, only for upper middle class and rich folks, and because she appeals to only that audience, that some of the, like, working class or lower middle class people are now like, yeah, I like that too. It's bizarre as a review. I don't know what it's
It
supposed to
really
say
is.
about the music.
Maybe nothing.
I
I mean,
probably nothing.
I feel like some review people and even some reviews from good review people are just approached the same way like the horoscope is approached, where you just try to write it as generally as possible so the most people relate to it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like today the Cancer sign you will have an event at your job, and it's like, oh my God, I had an event at my job.
Right.
It's like, all right, something
You'll
like
make
that.
a decision today. Oh, that's right.
You'll consider breakfast.
Yeah.
I don't write my my horoscopes.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, okay. So moving on to my opinion on the album, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It was good.
It's good.
It was good. Here's what I'll say as like I don't want to be negative because this isn't a negative for me. This album was boring. Like it was it was boring. I'm sorry. I was a little disappointed in it, mainly because I really enjoy the genre. And you and I both agree on that. We both really enjoy folk rock, or folky, whatever,
Yeah, singer-songwriter.
singer-songwriter, folkiness-ish kind of situation. It's kind of our vibe, at least in a chunk of the music that we listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like this album was very flat overall. There wasn't a lot of ups, there wasn't a lot of downs. It was good. I could listen to any track on this album and enjoy it.
Sure.
As a whole album, it was 38 minutes and I felt every minute.
Sure.
For better or worse, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll take us into No Secrets. And there's a couple things to note here almost right away. One, this album is still in that like singer-songwriter range,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a little bit more poppiness to it. Not
Sure.
a ton. It's not like a pop album by any means. I wouldn't call it that. But all of a sudden, I'm hearing a little bit more poppiness. Two, it has her far and away biggest song on it, You're So Vain, which I hinted at in the intro. And three, I still felt like Carly Simon is a little more one note than I had expected, because I do not know a lot about Carly Simon's music other than the fact that I've heard her name constantly, and I've heard You're So Vain, and I've heard a couple of Carly Simon songs.
Sure.
But I really just was expecting a little bit more range, quite frankly. It just felt, again, a little bit flat and a little bit. This album really narrowed into me what I don't love about the album. Not a dislike, but not a love. And it's the pace. It's slow pace.
I get that
constantly.
Yeah.
And so that is a bit of an issue for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely understandable. Just to highlight some of I think the better aspects of the album is, one, I think you can clearly hear the James Taylor influence in the style of the singer-songwriter that she is.
Sure.
Here. And I mean, I think the sound quality is really good on this record. I think the performances from the backing band are pristine. And if you look at a lot of the people in the band, again, like you have Nicky Hopkins playing keys on some tracks. You've got Lowell George with slide guitar, Jim Gordon and Jim Keltner doing some drums, Ray Cooper on congas, like a lot of Paul Buckmaster, and then backing vocals from Jagger, James Taylor, Paul and Linda McCartney. Like you have a lot of people who are great at what they do
for sure
playing on this album. And again, you really hear that from the backing band.
A ton of talent. Definitely not shirking away from the talent of her
like
or the ensemble.
Right. The ensemble sounds very, very good. And I thought what was interesting here, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up because you're normally the person who picks up on stuff like this more than I do. But for an album released in 1972 by a solo female artist, there's some risque lyrics, like the fact that some songs allude to her being a sexual being at all in any way. I think, I think it stood out a little bit to me.
I fully, thinking back on that with the added context, I'm totally with you. I'm just so much more used to that nowadays that it didn't even click to me that this album is from 1972.
Just getting that and knowing it was early 70s was like, okay, that's interesting. That feels a little like on the more groundbreaking side of saying things like that in a mainstream record.
I agree with that.
Oh yeah, I guess I should talk about the next one.
You probably should. It would make sense.
So Never Been Gone. Her voice has aged, so let's just start there.
For sure. I mean, it's been a number of years. What, 37 years?
Yeah, so we went from 72 to 2009. But it still sounds pretty good. You know, like you can hear the age, but it's not like she's aged in a way where you're just like, okay, the songs are ruined by the vocals. They kind of just take away. No, like they're still good enough to not detract from the song at all. I think there were some really nice acoustic guitar parts on this record. There was a really interesting and bizarre re-record at times of You're So Vain.
Yeah.
Because, like, there was enough different between the original and the re-record where I was intrigued. It wasn't just classic rock artist re-records album in the 2000s and just is a greatest hits album that's not ostensibly different in any way on any song.
Yeah.
This was a different version of the song, so I'm giving credit. But what happened at the end?
I really couldn't tell you. I'll be honest with you.
Something happened. Um, and then you have a couple songs in here that are much more like electric band behind her.
Yeah.
So that's something different. But one of the examples of that is a song called You Belong to Me, which was like just such a hey girl type of song all the way through. I was just waiting for her to say, hey girl.
Well, you know why? You know who the other writer is on that? It's Michael McDonald. Right. So it fits.
Yeah. So, you know that is not a style of song that I see eye to eye with.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. So I guess it was like a solid last album. It was interesting and fine. So I think that amounts to a solid last album if it's interesting and fine.
Listen, I don't disagree with you on any of that. Her voice is deeper. Her voice is still maintaining a richness that shows there's no damage and a good sound. So I'm okay with all of that. Some of the recording choices were a little iffy, but it was fine. And again, a little bit, maybe even a little bit more interesting to me because it felt like the choices were different, whereas the first two albums felt a little samey to me.
Sure.
Even though there was probably more overall talent on the first two albums.
Right.
So a bit up and down for me, but nothing to actively dislike, which is an important distinction on this podcast because there's so many things that there are cause to actively dislike.
For sure.
Oh, all right, Nick, give us your notes.
Okay, here we go. I'm just going to kick things off with mean because I didn't find anything. So I'm just going to move past that. She doesn't appear to be mean.
Okay.
She seems to be a nice person.
Well, that's great.
I'm going to let you know in the negative vein, her low light, which was dealing with cancer in the late 90s. And then she also lost a ton of her money in a Ponzi scheme. So those things were not so good for her. Seemingly is doing fine now.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, right. For nice, my nice thing also blends with a 6 Degrees. She did a No Nukes benefit show. And that album was released, and it also included performances by the Doobie Brothers, Tom Petty, Poco, Ry Cooder, and James Taylor, all of whom we have covered at some point on the show.
Yeah.
What's unique? I thought this was interesting. Romulus Hunt, which is her 1993 opera that she wrote for 4 performers. It was joint commissioned by the Metropolitan Opera Association and the Kennedy Center because they wanted someone to write contemporary opera to appeal to the young folks.
To the youths.
So that's unique. I thought that she was commissioned to write an opera.
Yeah, that's pretty unique.
She's done some interesting things. And then also, in terms of 6 Degrees to add on to the No Nukes concert, she was, of course, married to James Taylor from 1973 until 1982.
That'll do it.
And then later on, she was actually engaged to drummer Russ Kunkel in 1985 and 1986, Russ, we have talked about several times, and only to mention the artists that he's played with that we've covered on the podcast would include Jimmy Buffett, Harry Chapin, Neil Diamond, Dan Fogelberg, because we're going to mention him in a minute, Glenn Fry, Joni Mitchell, Stevie Nicks, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Bob Seger, Carly Simon, James Taylor, Joe Walsh, Bill Withers, Neil Young, Warren Zevon.
Okay.
And that was me skipping a lot of huge names because we haven't covered them yet.
Okay. I want to be very clear.
She has great taste in men in terms of musical ability.
I want to be very clear. Okay. Just to understand. I think we all need to recognize there is no level of music where it is not nearly impossible to find a drummer.
Yeah.
Even on the professional level, if you're a fucking drummer, you could be in 80 bands if you want to
really
be.
Good. Yeah, I mean, really drums and bass, because everyone wants to sing and play guitar.
Yeah, that's accurate. Some of us can't even do half of those.
That's a great point. Me neither. Should we move on to Mr. Fogelberg?
Yes, we shall Fogel it up. All right. I need to take like 2 minutes and call my dad. He called me during that. I just want to make sure everything's all right.
Sounds good.
But I will BRB.
Okie dokie.
Did you entertain the masses in my absence?
Yes, I was extremely entertaining. I was snapping for a while.
Good. That's important.
And then I started to read.
Out loud to them?
Yes.
Good. Did you pick your book for Sunday?
Yeah, I think I am going to go with Mother Night.
Good. It'll be fun.
Agreed.
It will be a fun time. All right. All right, let me get over Dan Fogelberg now. Everything is all right, by the way.
Good.
I thought my calm coming back in was enough of the clue of that, but...
I thought that as well.
All right. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Daniel Grayling Fogelberg was an American singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist who was active from 1968 until 2007, the year he unfortunately passed away at the age of 56. So,
yeah,
I think we might have a spoiler alert for a low light.
That's fair. Now, can I ask you something completely unrelated before we go any further?
Absolutely.
I just remembered. 2 students told me today that they eat pickles with peanut butter.
So 2 of your students are serial killers?
I don't know. but I just wasn't. I just wanted to put that out there to see if I was the only one who thought that was completely crazy, or if that's like a thing. It's tangentially related to Dan Fogelberg because there's a lot of speculation out there as to whether or not he ate pickles with peanut butter.
The tangential relation is hilarious.
And we can never know. But it's living rent free in my head. Pickles and peanut butter. I guess I should have asked which type of pickles, just like dill pickles, bread and butter pickles. Would you put bread and butter with peanut butter?
Also,
like a spicy pickle?
I feel like you gotta either go spicy pickle to have the peanut butter cut it.
Okay.
Or like maybe like a sweet gherkin, because then you're just having like a dessert style PB&J adjacent situation.
I guess.
Like neither are ideal for me.
I don't want to try it.
No.
I want to know, but I don't want to have to find out.
Yeah, that seems like something I'm not interested in.
So by the end of the episode, we'll know whether or not Dan Fogelberg liked that as well then.
Yeah, of course. That'll definitely be. That's the number. That's the only thing we're talking about, not his music.
That's your unique fact, I
think. Anyway, also tangentially unrelated to the podcast.
All right.
But something that I have you here, and so we'll say, even though we're live on YouTube.
Of course.
Just got a text from one of a place that we play at.
Okay.
Or that we have played at once. Interested in booking us for the season. So
nice.
We're going to have to send some open dates, which we...
I like that.
They're saying one in October, one October, 1 November, 1 October early, 1 November late, and then one in January late.
Wow, look at that.
So...
All right, well,
we'll
figure that out later.
Yes, we'll have to figure that out. Quickly.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Today. Sorry, I'm literally getting the text right now.
Okay, that's fair.
But either way, Dan Grayling Fogelberg, covered 3 albums. We started with Home Free from 1972. We followed it up with Phoenix from 1979. And then we skipped just a little bit of time. And I believe we did Love in Time.
That's
if I
correct.
texted you the correct thing, which is from 2009. Which is a posthumous release, because that's how time works. Everybody mentioned he passed away in 2007. I'm just making sure our audience understands what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'll get started with Home Free. And here's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
It was not fully what I was expecting.
I don't really know what I was.
Right. I didn't really know what I was expecting either. It just wasn't this. Mm-hmm. However, I enjoyed it. This is also like a folky singer-songwriter album. There's a little bit more variance to the pacing. I will say it does drag a little bit in a similar way that Carly Simon's did, but I felt like there was more tempo variance in these tracks. And I have to say his voice is very interesting.
It is. I have a weird comp for it.
I also have a weird comp, but I'm very curious to hear your weird comp. So I will settle with he has a weird voice, and I will give my comp when you give your comp.
I'll start with it then.
Okay.
So he sounds like, and I'm about to make a negative connection, but know that I love this artist. He sort of sounds like if Neil Young's voice wasn't so irritating. And I mean, I love Neil Young, but his voice is so grating. But it's sort of like has a little bit of that quality to it in the timbre, but not the gratingness of it. Like a smoothed out Neil Young.
I feel like we're in a similar vein here, because even though I picked 2 artists that are very different from Neil Young, I think the combination makes sense.
Okay.
I said it sounds like James Taylor and Michael McDonald had a baby. Because there's like the high range of the McDonald sound, but a little bit more of the calm timbre of James Taylor's voice, without any of the that Michael McDonald is known for. Again, I enjoy Michael McDonald singing. I know it's polarizing. Sure. I enjoy it, but it's definitely that's the comp that I had. So two very different comps, but also similar.
Exactly. I have a lot of other comps in my. So one, the album cover. We got to discuss it. Let me start by saying I have never gone on Ancestry.com and looked up Dan Fogelberg. But he looks like he's at least 98% Native American in the drawing of him on the cover of this album. I don't. That's the only thing that it makes me think. I'm like, oh, is Dan Fogelberg a Native American? I don't think that he is, but he looks like he would be.
The album cover really looks to me like he was accused of a crime and a sketch artist like sketched him from some witness recollection, and then he saw it and went, bet, that's my new album cover. I love it. It's very strange.
It is strange. Severe. It's a severe portrait. But the music of it was pretty good. I really liked it. There was good harmony in there. It had a lot of like country inspiration, like a country rock to the singer-songwriter. It gave a lot of early Eagles vibes, like first Eagles album or two.
Yeah, for sure.
There's also a lot of like brooding about it. There's a delicateness to it, and the brooding delicateness almost felt like a pre-Elliott Smith. So I was thinking in terms of a lot of comparisons and the different aspects of the album. But overall, I thought it was a good record. Like, I liked Home Free. I didn't know what to expect at all from Dan Fogelberg. But now I would say that I like Dan Fogelberg.
I would agree with you on that.
And so we get into Phoenix. And now it's like way more rock than I was expecting. Like, this is a rock album. And again, it still has that sort of like Eagles-esque country rock sound to it, but it's also starting to branch out a lot. I think the vocals are stronger on this. I think there's a lot of really good guitar work on this album. I think this is I'm going to say this is definitely my number one album of the week.
Sure.
Really good about. He's even got the title track is like a 7-minute long song. So there's a little bit of room for movement and development of the song, like just different stuff. And I liked it.
Listen, man, I completely agree with you. This album truly a revelation to me. So I listened to Carly Simon No, I didn't. I listened to Dan Fogelberg first. My brain,
it's
man.
Hard to remember.
My brain. For a little bit of inside baseball for people. Like, we couldn't record when we wanted to record. I had like kind of a family thing happen. So we ended up having to push it almost a week. And so it's like a week in adult time is years.
Only a week. We were going to do it last Wednesday. Announced this Thursday. We pushed it. We pushed it.
Great point. Great point. Anyway, I listened to Dan Fogelberg first. And this album, compared to the first one, was a big jump up. And I wish I listened to Carly Simon first, because this album would have healed my wounds of boredom.
It was definitely the most interesting.
It was the most interesting. It was the most upbeat total. It was a very interesting mix of tracks and tunes that was really, really fun to listen to. I thought that his vocal range was really well utilized on this. A lot of like kind of like almost like tremolo falsetto sound at times, but with a little bit of deeper push at times. Really enjoyed it. I mean, truly, from an artist that I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
I enjoyed listening to this album from Dan Fogelberg. And I mean, I'll take us into Love and Time. Now, like as I mentioned, unfortunately, Dan Fogelberg has passed away at this point. And this album was a posthumous release by his wife. And I thought with that context, it's a very well put together album. I didn't I'm trying to find, it's a bit of a letdown after Phoenix. That's
Sure.
what I'll say. It's a bit of a letdown after Phoenix because Phoenix was so good. But if you remove the context of that, it's I would say in my top 3 albums of the week.
Yeah, I would agree.
And
with
it could even be argued at number 2.
Yeah, sure.
Could be argued at number 2.
It could be argued there. One thing that you usually mention, but I'll bring up is he sounds really good vocally still. I thought the vocals there wasn't like a drop off in quality. So that's always good to hear.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out. I was gonna comment on that, and I'm trying to
when the tracks were all recorded.
I'm trying to find out right now when the tracks were recorded because I want to know, because he's definitely older. Because the last album came out in 1979, so this is 30 years
for sure.
And I'm curious when these came out. So I'm
when
looking
he actually recorded them, right?
Yeah.
But I like that he still is often at least using a full band instrumentation, brings a little bit more liveliness to the record. There are a couple songs to highlight. Diamonds to Dust had a really interesting a cappella opening. And then Nature of the Game had another, like the openings of the songs were what I think hooked me the most on this record. There's a great acoustic blues guitar that starts off Nature of the Game. So a couple of the highlights for me were, how he chose to open his songs. It was a little bit more of an introspective record compared to the other two overall. But like, again, it's good. It's a good album. Like, I enjoyed listening to it. And is it on my list of things that I'm going to go back and listen to anytime soon? No.
Okay. Listen, I'll completely agree with you on a lot of this. I will say first that his wife's name was Jean Fogelberg, and she released this posthumously.
Well, I want to cover the album a second time.
I want to give her credit. And then I just want to also shout out that these albums, these tracks were recorded in between 2003 and 2005.
Okay.
So in his 50s, sounds great. Just
Absolutely.
wanted to add the context in for everybody because I was trying to find that out.
Yeah.
I had meant to research that beforehand, and I just didn't.
Sure.
That's going to be honest with you. I just didn't do it.
I'll allow it.
So, some facts about the Fogue, about the Berg. We'll start with the unique. And I'll be honest with you, man. I had a little trouble finding this.
Okay. That's all right. I appreciate you being honest.
Yeah, I had a little trouble finding it because from the outside, Dan Fogelberg lived a pretty standard musician's life for the most part. He got into music at a younger age. He was introduced to it by a relative. He learned to play the guitar. He never really studied music and then started performing music and got recognized in college and kind of blew up from there. But there's two things that I thought were unique to Dan Fogelberg.
Okay.
Now, one of them is kind of a cop-out because it's not unique. It just isn't done as much in this time.
Okay.
And that's that Dan Fogelberg never wrote albums. He never tried to write an album. He never was like trying to gather music for an album. He didn't care what the theme of an album, none of it. He wrote individual songs and would record individual songs. And then eventually he would record enough of them that they would release. Now, that's not in and of itself unique, but I do think that is something that was much more common in like the 50s, maybe early 60s, and then kind of shifted. And and then now again. But I think right around the 70s, a lot more artists were writing albums and stuff. So I thought that was cool that it was a completely different style than other people of the time. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting.
Is this the pickles and peanut butter?
Well, the pickles and peanut butter, I don't want to talk about. I'll be honest. You've thrown me off with that. But something that I thought was interesting and maybe a little unique. So Dan Fogelberg, after Home Free came out, was playing shows for like roughly 80 to 100 people. Still not really blowing up. It wasn't really like the thing, even though the album did eventually go platinum. It did not immediately show gangbuster success right away. However, there was a radio station in Jackson, Mississippi called WZZQ, which I guess the people on the station liked the album, gave it a ton of airplay. And because of that, some local promoters secured the City Auditorium in Jackson for a concert with over 2,500 people,
Nice.
which Dan Fogelberg did not organize and just was like told about and then showed up and played. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's very interesting.
To have like
Huh? Okay,
you're
I'll be
playing
there.
like little bar gigs for like 100 people, like little venues, and then a place in Mississippi calls you up. It's like, we got an auditorium for 2,500 seats with your name on it, champ. Like, that's pretty freaking cool.
That is.
So moving on, the highlight of his career for me, I would say probably the album Souvenirs, because it was his second album. It was produced by Joe Walsh, which is a little 6 Degrees as well. Then there was the song Part of the Plan from that album, which became, if you were a fan of Dan Fogelberg, that is one of his biggest songs to you.
Okay.
And I thought that it was kind of the mark of success. So therefore a pretty easy highlight for me.
Sure. And Russ Kunkel plays drums on that album.
Wait, does he really?
Yeah,
I believe you.
He plays them on Part of the Plan. He plays
That's
them on
funny.
every single track except for track 4, Better Change, where Don Henley plays the drums. And what did I say about him sounding like early Eagles?
Well, and so that was what I was going to say. This album was produced by Joe Walsh, and the Eagles were heavily featured throughout the album, and a few of the early Dan Fogelberg albums. He was friendly with them. So I'm going to skip a couple things here. I'm going to go into the 6 Degrees because I want to give the low light its time. So the one that I wanted to use, I could have used the Joe Walsh effect. I kind of hinted at it. But I thought it was interesting because in 1971, he was signed to Columbia Records by Clive Davis, pretty well-known dude. And Clive Davis basically included Dan Fogelberg in his like slew of singer-songwriters that he had talked about.
Sure.
And that he signed all at the same time. One of the bigger ones being Billy Joel, but one of the other much bigger ones being Paul Simon, who I've
heard of him as
discussed. We have discussed the Simon. But I thought it was cool because it's like those two are household names to everyone. And then Dan Fogelberg has not quite achieved the household name, even though his albums have all done much better than you would think. And I'm sure we'll talk about that when we score.
Sure.
But he also performed in the early 70s as the opening act for Van the Man Morrison.
Okay.
Which I thought was another 6 Degrees, obviously, because we have theoretically and realistically covered Van Morrison on this podcast.
In episode 2.
A long
It is
time
no
ago.
longer episode 2.
A long time ago. Anyway, the low light. So in May of 2004, Dan Fogelberg was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. And after undergoing chemotherapy, he entered remission. And now, if you remember what I said about Love and Time, this was during the time he was recording Love and Time. Mm-hmm. So he kind of started recording it, then got diagnosed, and then was still kind of getting treatment and recording. And I think that might be part of why that album did take on a bit of a reflective quality.
Sure.
Unfortunately, in August of 2005, he announced the success of the treatments, but then the cancer came back in 2007. He passed away at 56. So,
Correct.
A sad low light to the life and unfortunate passing of Dan Fogelberg. He was aware of the terminal state of the cancer by the time he was finishing recording of Love and Time, and that's why he worked with his wife to know that it was going to be a posthumous release, and that's why I included it, because A lot of times posthumous releases can be like collections of older songs that we just release after someone's dead. This was not that. This was made to be released at that time. But it is an unfortunate, sad end to a very talented musician and one that I really enjoyed listening to. I have nothing for meanest or nicest either.
That's fine.
Not a ton of info on the Berg.
On the Berg. All right. Well, let's talk about cultural impact. I think I mentioned a handful of other singer-songwriters throughout the course of this that all have higher scores than either one of these two are going to get for good reason. However, definitely some points. Carly Simon has the one big hit, but her name is, I think, a little bit. I think she transcends You're So Vain a little bit.
Yeah.
And obviously had a lot of success. Like many of her albums sold well. And while Fogelberg probably doesn't have a hit that's quite to the level of You're So Vain, he very consistently was selling platinum album after platinum. Like he had a large following and he did well consistently. So these are both artists that are worth more points than their number of top hits would suggest.
I would agree with you. And I was very surprised that I agree with you as much as I do. I was the certifications for Dan Fogelberg
shocked me.
Totally. We'll discuss in the next category.
Because I never knew any of his songs, and then it's like platinum, double platinum, 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 double platinum, double platinum, platinum. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressive stuff. Now, Carly Simon has maybe a little bit more of a case for the name recognition of it all.
Sure, yeah, I would agree.
So, I mean, what are you thinking for Carly Simon? And we can kind of.
Here's what I wrote. I wrote 4.3.
Okay, I would be fine with a 4.3 for her, and then maybe like in between a 3.9 and a 4.3 for Fogelberg.
All right,
because he's going to be a little lower, but
yeah, 4.1 it is. I love it. Breadth of work. Carly Simon had 23 albums. She starts with a 6.4 in her career. My approximation that I was able to come up with is that she has sold about 10 million. Give or take. So she's definitely getting a little bit of a boost on top of that 6.4. It's just like, is it 0.1 or is it 0.2?
Okay. I just want to be very clear, okay? Because you're going to be very upset if you do this.
Okay.
Carly Simon has released 23 albums, yes.
Yes.
But that's including 2002's album, which was titled Christmas is Almost Here.
Oh, good point. I did write 22 albums in my notes. It's the same starting score.
Yeah, I know. But I know that if you didn't call that out, you'd be very mad at yourself
That's
later.
A great point.
You would hit yourself in the face with a pillow, and we don't want that.
Yeah. Oh, I keep forgetting to mention for Carly's score, she did get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022. And she is in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. So, I mean, like, we were starting from that 4.
Interesting. That probably puts her up, dude.
Yeah, it might actually. It might be more like a 5 now.
Yeah, I would put her at a 5. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, but 10 million sales. Are we giving her 0.1 or 0.2 for that?
Let's give her 0.2.
Okay. Now for her score, I am tempted to do nothing.
Okay. So you're tempted to do nothing, but then what will you do?
I'm going to give her 0.04 for You're So Vain.
Love that.
I'm going to see if you want to give her 0.01 and give her the 0.1 between us.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't, because here's the thing. Court. I didn't dislike Carly Simon.
Not at all.
Not going to take away any points. He definitely dragged a bit for me, and so I'm not going to add any points either. So totally I think leave her where she is.
All right. Dan Fogelberg, 6.1 from his, 13 albums? And, or 16 albums.
16 albums, yeah.
And he has about 12 million in sales, or a minimum of 12 million from what I'm able to calculate. So I think that's probably about the same. He's going to get the 0.2 bump. They're in the same neighborhood of sales.
Exactly right. Now, the one thing I'll say about Dan Fogelberg, he did it in less albums.
That's
so
true.
Good for him on
job.
that front. And I will say, I want to just look. So both of their albums came out in 2009, their final albums.
Yes.
So if I were to look up Carly Simon's discography here,
Okay.
2009. So Dan Fogelberg, his last album ranked or charted higher than Carly Simon's. Not really going to affect points.
True.
Just thought it was a little
also,
interesting.
Here's the thing that you have to keep in mind about that. Dan Fogelberg, like, he got the posthumous bump, whereas Carly Simon's last album, it wasn't like, all right, I'm going to die now, and then I'm going to put out this last album. She's still alive.
You are probably correct.
Every artist we've covered, whether they've ever charted or not, does when
they
they
get
have
a bump.
posthumous album, there's a big bump.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. All that to be said, I'm going to give Dan Fogelberg 0.1.
So am I.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Phoenix. And that's I would leave him alone for the other two. I wouldn't take any away. Obviously, I enjoyed them. The one that gets the point is Phoenix.
I agree. And here's what I think when it comes to instrumental talent. I think Carly Simon is prototypical 5.
I would completely agree. I really
exactly
would.
What I think a 5 is.
She has a pleasant voice, nothing to detract from you in any way. She's not exactly singing with incredible range. She's playing averagely. Yeah,
and
I think a 5 is perfect.
Studio musicians playing, the plain arrangements behind them, nothing like where they stand out. So
for sure. So the Berg.
To me, this score is a little higher.
I agree I think that there
still
is
low 5s.
Yeah, these are close artists.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he would probably be closer to like a 5.3 for me.
I love it.
There's a little bit of uniqueness in his voice that I think Carly Simon doesn't have a bad voice, but there's not something that just like, I don't instantly recognize her voice in a character, like a characterization.
I think his songs also had more spaces for the instrumentalists to shine.
For sure. They absolutely did. And he did a very good job instrumentally as well in a lot of those, which is ironic because he taught himself to play on the Hawaiian slide guitar.
Interesting. Very interesting. For similar reasons to what we've discussed in why the instrumental difference exists, I think a similar songwriting gap exists where I'm giving the slight edge to Fogelberg.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so obviously they're both well over the average of albums, so that is not even a consideration at this point. No. And I think it's similar. Like, I wouldn't take away points from Carly Simon. I'd put her maybe in the low 5s.
Yep.
And I would probably put him in like the mid 5s. So maybe like a 5.2 and a 5.5.
I typed in a 5.1 and a 5.5 as we were discussing.
Hey, that works too. Whatever.
Yeah. Poetic talent. Look.
So this one, I think, if it doesn't flip the script totally, it definitely either closes the gap or erases the gap here. I think that both write poignant lyrics and meaningful lyrics. I would have probably given the edge to Fogelberg until you gave me that added mental context of the fact that she was writing those style of like kind of risque lyrics of being like, hey, women like sex too sometimes in 1972. And I think with that added context, that
was pretty interesting.
It was interesting.
To give me some points here.
Yeah. And I completely, it did for me as well. Yeah. I would have probably given Fogelberg like a 5.8 and her like a 5.4. And I'm probably going to give them both a 5.8 now. I think they're both.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Is there any X factor here that we need to be aware of?
I don't think so. I mean, I will say, I just want to shout out Fogelberg one more time. Not for points here, but it's kind of where I will do this. He after he knew that his prostate cancer had come back and was terminal, he spent the rest of his life like loudly advocating for men over the age of 40 to get regular checkups because he admitted that this was something that they could have caught earlier and he would have lived.
Right.
And so like, good for you. Like, I will remember that you did that because you very easily
Totally.
could have just lived the rest of your own life and like spent your time with your family and like settled into, planning for the beyond. And I'm sure that was part of what he did.
Of course.
But the fact that he used some of his limited time left to loudly advocate for that, I will give him his props
Absolutely. Got to respect it.
for that. Yeah.
The final score is close.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It was less than half a point of separation. And winning this week is Carly Simon with a 27.5.
I thought so. I mean, it was very close, and I enjoyed both of them. Fogelberg just doesn't quite have that same name recognition.
And that's really where the difference is. Because he had a 27.2. It was a 0.3 difference.
I mean, great showing on both, honestly.
Totally.
I was a little negative on her when we reviewed her, but it was very much like I enjoyed every track. It's just, you guys got to understand when we're listening to 3 albums, and most of the time we're listening to them back to back. I don't know how you do it. I typically go back to back to back if I can.
Yeah.
Because it keeps my time fresh for me.
Right.
And like once you get to like midway through that second album, it's like, this is boring. I'm bored now.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not necessarily listening in the way that it's intended, though. So I take that with a grain of salt.
That's fair. Now, next week, we are going to be looking at 2 iconic vocal groups of the late 50s, early 60s era.
Okay.
So that'll be fun.
That will certainly be fun. All right. Well, listen, with that all being said, do yourselves a favor. Go watch the birds. I don't know what else to say.
Go birds.
Go birds. I know I usually like to relate it to music and like some type of inner reflection thing, but let's all reflect on the birds.
I agree. I agree. And fuck Jerry Lee Lewis.
And fuck Jerry Lee Lewis. And I guess also Jerry Jones. Yes. Same brain cell.
Yes.
All right. That's it, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Have a great day. All right. I'm going to end the stream.
Excellent.
So I'm going to play the little video to end the stream. Goodbye, everybody. But don't leave.